Hey,
Hey everybody, how you
welcome to
doing?
Beer and Gear.
Yeah,
I'm doing good. How about you?
doing good. Can't complain.
Um, what are you drinking?
Tonight is the rare canned experience. I am drinking Martin House Boxlighter Toadies Texas Bock. So I don't
Nice.
know the next time you'll see me crack open a can. I'm a snob that way.
Uh yeah, it doesn't happen very often. That was very quiet. Well done. I have what I'm gonna go ahead and call a joke beer
Okay.
that a friend gave me. Had to happen to have it with me whenever it came time to record this. And it is a Yungling
Oh wow.
Hershey's Porter.
Okay. I have not seen their Hershey's Porter.
So neither had I. I did not know it was a thing. My friend who gave it to me was making a joke about how I always say I'm not really a coffee drinker. I drink caffeinated chocolate milk is
Yeah.
what I drink. So if it's mostly chocolate milk and then you pour a little bit of coffee into it, then yeah, I can drink that. That's fine. So he was joking about how I should try the chocolate beer and see if I felt the same way about it, and I don't. It's not the same.
It's not. So how strong is the chocolate?
Pretty strong. I'm not gonna lie to you. It's borderline. And it's not. So if you've had Yungling before, like this is not a stout. I know it says porter on the bottom of it. I'm not.
Mhm.
This tastes more like you've had. I know that you've had because you like dark beer. You've had a porter or something
Mhm.
or a stout or something like that you had like, oh, that's kind of, you can kind of have the like
The
hint of like
yeah,
you
the
have
notes
the
of
note
chocolate. Yeah.
of chocolate inside of it. This is more like a fizzy chocolate drink.
Fizzy lifting drink.
Um yeah, I mean there's definitely beer inside of it, but it's only 4.7% alcohol.
Okay.
So um it's it's a combination of really chocolatey and kind of thin. So
Hmm.
I
Because
don't really know how to like I'm not hating it. I don't like want to, like if I get like an IPA or something that's really fruity or flowery especially fruity I can kind
yeah.
of deal with, but flowery I can't handle beer that tastes like some sort of hand washing thing. And I think you know what I'm talking about
Oh
though. Have
yeah.
you ever had one of those where you're like, oh gosh, like that's
Yeah.
hand sanitizer.
Yeah.
I just drank hand sanitizer.
I have to stay away from IPA. I just can't do that. But
Um,
that's a bummer that
but this,
that one's not so good because like I've had some of the chocolate porters and the double chocolate porters and they have hints of chocolate
yeah,
but not enough that it's overpowering.
yeah. Well, I think because those are normally so smooth, it's almost um chocolate kind of goes with that smoothness. I think that because this is just a little, it's not. I'm not saying that it's the worst thing I've ever drank because it's not. It's not even the worst thing I've had on this show. But uh, it. I'm not sure I'm spending money on it. I'll just put it that way.
Okay. Well, I guess you've ensured that we're not getting free cases of the beer.
Now, if Yungling wants to send us free stuff, I would
Yes.
take that. Just please don't send the Hershey's Porter.
Well, that's a bummer. Yeah, I guess for us, probably still the record for the worst was what was it the dinosaur? What was that one?
Yeah, that I did not like that. The True Vines,
Yes,
uh, whatever it was in
it was
Dragons and Dinosaurs or
Dragons and
Dinosaurs and
Dinosaurs. That's what
Dragons.
it was. Yeah.
Yeah, I did not like that. No,
All right. Well,
no. And I like a lot of True Vine stuff. So again, like I'm not hating on you, True Vine. I come there and drink your beer.
Yeah.
But
Well, I mean, not all of them are going to be a winner. We're gonna. That's kind of
That's
the whole
true.
idea, is to just constantly keep trying to find something new, see what we like, see what we don't. Maybe help some people
Yep.
discover
I
one
like it.
that they don't know that they may like as well.
That's true. And if you like Yungling a lot, and you think, you know what, I could probably eat like a Hershey's bar while I was drinking this, then you're really gonna like Yungling
Okay.
Hershey's Porter.
Okay.
That's what I would say.
Well, I would say the one that I've got's not too bad. Definitely reminds me a little bit of Shiner.
Mm-hmm.
Wish it was
Yeah.
in a bottle, but found it at
Well, of course.
the trusty Walmart. So,
Way to go, Walmart.
yeah, you never know what you're going to run into sometimes.
You remember when Tyler didn't have any alcohol in it?
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Oh yeah. That was
And
not
it's-
that long ago, actually.
No, honestly, no, it wasn't. I keep thinking that we're going to wake up one day and they're going to go the rest of the way, and you're going to get all the things liquor in Smith County and in Tyler.
Probably not.
I think it's a matter of time.
I've always said that this Tyler would be a great minor league baseball town if they had more freedom with alcohol, because I mean you would just need to. But like I think this, like a minor league team would do great here. But you know.
Well, we had the one, but it just didn't really kind of do too well.
I didn't know about that. What is that?
Was it the Roughnecks? What was it? We had, because they played at the Mike Carter Field.
Did they?
Yes. Let me see if I can find that real quick. Wildcatters. I'm sorry. We had the Wildcatters.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
Founded in 94.
If I didn't know it was...
97.
Okay, well, I would say if I didn't know it was a thing, then probably it was before I got here, which means it was definitely before there was alcohol in Tyler.
Yeah, there was no alcohol then. The strongest drink you got then was Dr. Pepper.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I like Dr. Pepper while I'm watching baseball.
Oh, yeah.
But it's hard to beat beer and hot dog for a lot of people.
True. Very true.
Anyway.
All right.
Hey, what are we talking about?
Yeah, let's shift gears. We're gonna try to dig into a particular subject. I'm gonna hold on with both hands and try to hang on with John as he goes through this. We're going to be talking compression. Yes, not compression for fittings or cars or any of that, but compression for audio, which will run into limiting. And I think we talked about, we'll get into normalization, how that plays in it. Really kind of wanting to hear you, John, kind of get into why to use compression when, is there a reason to not use compression on things? And then obviously the settings have different names depending upon manufacturer, but there's some general accepted terms, attack, release, ratio, threshold. Those are kind of some commonly accepted terms for what you're doing with various elements of compression to try to improve audio. So I'm going to turn the floor over to you and let you run with it. And I may just chime in as long as we stay in the kiddie pool where my knowledge is at.
Well, I'm sure we will, because you keep saying I know a whole lot about this. I have a wide knowledge of this. I would not say it's super, super deep, but it is pretty cool to know about why we use things and general uses for things and everything like that. It's funny about compression. You were saying, um, not talking about mechanics or fittings or anything like that, but if you think about it, we use the term for what we're about to talk about in audio. We use the term compression because, I mean, it makes sense when you already know what the compression term means everywhere else. There's a general understanding with compression that you are um, putting limits on either side of something. You're pushing something in. You're trying to squeeze something. Actually, there's a lot of times compression will have funny squeeze name, like compressors, audio compressors, and whatever. Will have funny squeeze names and things like that. Compressors are used all over the place in audio. They've been used for uh, a really long time. I mean, you think about the need for them arising simply from the idea that your ear is designed to hear things from the world around you in a spatial. The new spatial audio is like huge now for both for speakers and for headphones and things like that.
Yeah.
The reason, like, we don't really, like, everybody's kind of going crazy about this, but it's because that's how our ears are designed to hear everything. Our ears are designed to be able to hear things behind us and in front of us, and they're designed to be able to distinguish between the things that we see, like what is making that noise. It's like a pinpoint accuracy that we have. You take your ears for granted a lot for what they can do for you, and there's this huge space that they're coming out of. Well, when you record anything, whether or when you put anything through a audio system, I'm going to say that because you may not be recording, you may just be transmitting audio in a live sense, and there's still a reason to use compression there. When you record something or when you transmit audio through an audio system in any way, you got to remember that you're taking all of those, like whatever inputs you have, you're taking those and you're then trying to send them out either through like a PA speaker, which may have big drivers on it and big woofers and all these, subwoofers and all that. Or you may be coming through like your tiny radio speakers, or even smaller, like your headphones, or even smaller, your earbud speakers. And you got to remember, like, you're taking a lot of audio that's being recorded. You're taking, even if they're in a recording room, like, you're taking the space of that audio and you're trying to make it come out of a tiny speaker. And so to do that, to do that and have it be intelligible, there's a thing that we have to use called compression. There's a lot of people that have hated on compression over the years. I'll say that because there is I mean, if you're an audiophile, there is kind of an unnaturalness to it because of what I just talked about. That your ears aren't really designed to be to hear compressed knowledge, to hear compressed audio. They're designed to hear the full picture,
The full spectrum.
But if you do that, then the full spectrum, the full dynamic spectrum. That's the other part, is it's not just the 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz that your ears are really designed to operate with inside of, but the amplitude of those hertz, kilohertz. You're designed to hear large ranges of dB. Now, listening to something that has really loud and really quiet dB, like over and over and over again, is really exhausting to your ears. You notice this at the airport. Not well, maybe not at the airport as much anymore because most of them are so insulated inside of it. But I remember like hearing jets take off and how loud that is, and then how quietly the person next to you is talking, and your ear is designed to be able to do that. Speakers not so much designed for that. and not so much designed for the intelligibility that we talked about. So this thing comes along, this effect comes along called compression, where we basically we take what we want to hear and we give it a bottom and we give it a top, and we push down on the wave. I'm drawing with my hands like y'all can see me. We push down on the wave, the amplitude of the wave, not the frequency of the wave. That's important to know the difference of, but the amplitude of the waves, we're pushing down on that until they fit within a certain area. And that helps with transmission. I don't know if you've ever listened to somebody or a recording, either a recording of something or maybe even a someone live that's coming through a speaker. If you can really, like, I can understand them when they're talking loudly, but when they get really quiet, it's just really hard to understand what they're saying. If there's no compression on them, then what happens is you've got a system that is optimized for the upper part of that audio range and not for the lower part. If you've got a system that you can really hear when they're talking quiet, and then when they talk loud, it's like it sounds distorted, it sounds garbled, it sounds whatever, then you've got a system that's optimized for that lower dB, that lower range of audio, and it's peaking out at the top. So in order to this is kind of a fun side note. Have you ever seen the movie Shoot? It had the Irish singer-songwriter, and Once. Is it Once? I think it's Once.
I don't know.
It's got an Irish singer-songwriter. I'm going to have to look it up so I don't make sure that I'm not. Yeah, it's called Once. It's from 2007. Irish singer-songwriter, and I think it's I can't remember where she's from. It's got to be Eastern European. But two singer-songwriters actually, and they're just going through their life, and they meet, and there's just, honestly a little bit weird of a story about them. But the funny part is that the movie is not like it. It may be loosely based on somebody's life or his life or something like that, but it's really just an excuse for these two incredible songwriters to be in the same space and to put their musical abilities together. And that's also kind of the story of it, is just that this happenstances, but they end up recording a song together, or actually a whole album together. And the audio engineer at the end of all the recording, he's like, he totally doesn't, he thinks this is a waste of his time. And then they start going and he's like, oh my gosh, this is real. And so he starts like going crazy and trying to make it all work and make it sound good. Well, not make it sound good, but record how good it sounds. And then at the end of all that, he kind of like collapses in his chair with them. There's a montage, of course, of them recording all these songs. And he kind of collapses in his chair with them at the end and is like, okay, now we got to do the crappy speaker test. And they basically take their song that they've recorded and they go play it in a car, like they drive their car to the beach and they listen to the song that they've recorded on the car speakers going to the beach. Now, why is that important? And why am I talking about compression and then talking about that? Compression is one of those things that if you have, the best spatial audio headphones that you can design, if you have a, Dolby Digital surround sound 7.9.2, what I don't know, some like ridiculousness speaker system around you, compression is not what you're worried about.
No.
You're probably worried about there being too much compression because it's creating
for the full fidelity.
You're looking for full fidelity. The reason that you would use compression is to kind of simplify the audio signal. You think about radio being so big um, for so long, before TVs, we're enthralled with radio and radio waves and everything like that. Well, radios have to be the signal going out to radios has to be compressed, and it has to be tuned, and it has to be able to sound good over a wide array of speakers and what's being used, and to be intelligible. And so really, audio engineers at that time that are focused on what they're recording and everything, they're really trying to make sure that you can hear the most important things. And so they're compressing the crap out of those things in order to make sure that that area stays where it's supposed to be able to be widely received. And I understand, like, again, there's this like dirty word with compression, like there's this like compression's the enemy or something like that. It is a tool that, yes, when it had to be used to make something kind of sound ugly, we listen to old recordings of something and you're like, wow, that kind of sounds bad. Well, compression was being used to overcome the shortcomings of the speaker. It was also being used to overcome the shortcomings of the microphone, because if you weren't directly in the microphone, it was a very faint sound. Well, you would compress then the sound that was coming out so that the really loud, what was right in front of the microphone, was not overpoweringly loud than the thing that was a little bit further away from the microphone.
Correct.
And this is where I'll talk a little bit about live audio, because there's a lot of times that in live audio, I'm using compression. When I'm mixing live audio, I'm using compression kind of for that reason. Either audio, like for a person speaking, I'm using it because they can't regulate either their distance from the microphone. Well, I'll say it first. Either because they can't regulate their distance from the microphone or their volume into the microphone. And those are two different things. Like, you stay the same distance from your microphone, but you get really loud or you shout, which was the classic camp problem. Everybody would hold at summer camp, everybody holds the microphone right up to their mouth. And then whether or not they're whispering into it to just say like some little funny joke that they want everybody to hear, or they're screaming at everyone to like get the energy level up. Compression is what makes those two things work in the same space. If you've got somebody that's pulling the microphone away from them and then pushing it close to them, like if they just have no discipline with their microphone, compression is going to be your friend in order to keep their highs down and their lows still up enough. So let's then talk about threshold. So threshold is kind of the bottom. Threshold is where do I want the compression to start?
Correct. Yeah,
everything else may be true to its dB, right?
Yep. Yeah, that's kind of I was going to say you're kind of setting the threshold. You're setting the magic number for all these things to start to happen.
Yes, to start to happen. Nothing is going to get compressed until you reach the threshold. I mean, I feel like it's aptly named for what it is. Ratio. What is ratio? Ratio is if you see compression as the amount of force down on the upper end of a volume level, ratio is how much pressure then you're putting on it.
Correct.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So like 1-to-1 is a straight line.
Yeah, 1-to-1, you're really not compressing anything, if I understand it correctly.
You're not compressing.
Whereas when you go 2-to-1, 3-to-1, 4-to-1, and so on, what you're saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, for every 1 dB over, you're compressing it down 4, or have I got that reversed? When you're looking at the
every
ratio?
1 dB, to get the line, for every 1 dB, you are pressing. Over the threshold, you're compressing. Yeah, I guess that's the case. If the I gotta do the line in my head so that I can see it on the graph. For every 1 dB that you're going up, it's pressing 2 dB over. It's trying to push slightly. That's
Yeah, so and
2 to
that
1.
would be in a 2-to-1 ratio.
2 to 1, and then 3 to 1 is more, 4 to 1 is more. So you see that line turn more severely on your, and usually that I'm saying it as a line because that's usually the way you see it represented on a on the graph of compression. If amplitude and time are over. Well, amplitude and what would the other one be? It's not time. In a graph of amplitude and oh shoot, well, I'm gonna have to look that up for our next episode.
Okay.
Because I can't remember what the other axis is on it. But it's you draw a straight line or like a diagonal line going x equals y, x equals y, x equals y. 2 to 1 is if y is 1, x is 2, if and so on. Okay. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So that curvature of that line, the bend in that line is usually referred to as the knee.
Correct.
And for obvious reasons, you can see why that would be the that pivot point would be referred to as a knee. And you can make that knee softer, which means that it is more
gentle,
curved, which usually gives it a more natural sound.
Yeah.
If it's a sharper or a harder knee, then it sounds a little bit unnatural. The more curved, the more forgiving, I guess, your ears can be towards it. Also, just in general, the higher the ratio, the more heard the compression is going to be.
Correct.
As a general rule, spoken word is like 3 to 1 compression. That's usually what people are looking at. And then if it needs a little bit, if you really got a shouter on you, if you're really trying to tame this guy down, then that's you may need to up it. What are the other ones that you're talking? You said
attack and release were the other two, and so probably once we complete,
attack would be how.
I was going to say once we complete those, we'll probably be at your time limit that we're trying to hit at for tonight.
Okay. Well, attack would just be the how quickly the compression happens, and release is more how long that compression is held.
Mm-hmm.
Again, if compression happen, or the release is the one that I really care about most of the time. If it's held too long, especially with speaking, you hear it, and we're talking about milliseconds for both of these.
Mm-hmm.
Your ear, it's amazing how fast it hears things like this. But those two are kind of tied in my mind. The attack, how quickly you want, like how, and I guess for attack, you should be asking yourself how long can the ear sustain above the compression that I want, or how long can the ear not sustain? How long can the ear tolerate? There you go, above the compression that I want before I really need it to kick in. And the sustain is how long or how short can the ear tolerate the over compression that can happen with those things. So like that.
So let me ask you, since we were talking about for spoken, there's a kind of a rule of thumb of ratio. So do you have, or is there kind of a general rule of thumb on for attack and release, or does it depend on what you're compressing?
I think it would depend on what you're compressing. Again, you want pretty darn short on spoken word because it's so dynamic. I mean, just in that phrase that you just heard me say, it's so dynamic. That K, if 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 I have somebody who is really really strong with plosives or with different things like that, I may want to compress them. Um, even in kind of a separate mindset, I may want to compress them a little bit because of things like that, just to tame the way that their voice sounds. Because if I've got a really sensitive microphone and you've got somebody who's clicking a lot or has a really sharpness to them, that the enunciation is not what they're going to have a hard time with. Like the clarity is not going to be difficult for them. But instead of this gets really tricky because we got people that will EQ the crap out of something and never touch the compressor. And we have people that compress the crap out of something and never touch the EQ and a compressor. And maybe this is what we should talk about in the second one for a while, is EQ and compression go hand in hand. If you have one without the other, you're probably missing something.
Yeah.
And so there's things like the sibilants and things like that if you just compress the audio a little bit, if you compress it and you tighten up the release to where it's a shorter amount of time, and I mean, sub 10 millis. I mean, it's even, I don't know. That's a tough one. Like, that's one of the ones that I'm listening to what I'm doing and I'm turning the knob as I'm doing it. Because it's just like, it's so dependent on your ear, about being able to hear. So I'm not going to try to tell you, how long it should be, but just for the record, like, you can hear the difference between, I think latency, usually we're talking about like in 5 milliseconds. If something is more than 5 milliseconds later, milliseconds, like
Fractions.
Fractions of a second. You can hear that your ear can distinguish the difference. And that's a normal ear. There are people that are like 3 milliseconds and they're out. Like they can't handle being able to hear 3 milliseconds off. And it's like, all right, you're a special person. But at the same time, like, we talk a lot about that, or there's a lot of talk about this with video conversations. Like, people will say like bad video can be forgiven if there's good audio.
I've heard that a lot.
But bad audio cannot be forgiven. Your ears, like your eyes, especially when it comes to screens, are so used to seeing things a little bit soft, a little bit like, you get used to the color grading that's happening on something, or even the white balance or something like that. Like that's not exactly how I would like it to be. But your brain gets used to that very easily. If audio keeps being off, your brain, I mean, yes, there is a deafness that can happen if there's like a low hum or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
But if somebody's voice doesn't sound right or looks wrong with their voice, like, yep, your brain will have a hard time making sense of that. And it will keep telling you about it. And it shows up in the form of irritation. You will find yourself just being angry.
Yes.
At it. You may not even know why you're angry, but holy crap.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than watching a video and you can see that the audio and video are out of sync. It just, I know that may not quite be what you were going for, but that's
no, that's right.
That's one of those things
definitely part
that
of it.
I literally will stop the video because my brain,
or stop looking at it. If I'm really interested in what they're saying,
yeah, my brain just
can't do both
like that, and it's like, okay, we're done now.
Yeah, right. Anyway, this is super simple. I appreciate you letting me cut it short. I got to get home to my family.
No,
but
no problem. I'm glad we were still able to make it.
Yeah.
So I think we hit some of the key concepts there without going too far into the weeds. So yeah, maybe on the
Yeah.
next one we'll have more time and you can go in a little bit deeper, and you can definitely hit on why the EQ and the compression go hand in hand and are
Yes.
necessary.
Well, I'd love to hear any questions that you would have about it.
Yeah, the only other thing that
I like
I could throw
I'm
out,
actually going to look and see if there's.
I was gonna say the only thing I could throw
Sorry.
out real quick, and this may not be so much compression as it may be limiter. The example that came to mind when you were talking about the differences in the levels
Yes. Sorry.
is TV commercials.
Mhm.
You'll be watching a show, you
Yeah.
cut the commercial, and the commercial is just like, hey, and you're like, whoa, back off. And then the next commercial will be so
Yeah,
low
right.
that you're like cranking the volume up.
Mhm.
And the next commercial is boom, blaring back in your ears, and you're cranking the remote back down. So I don't know if that's more now TVs do limiting to stop that, or TVs are in stations in general trying to do more compression to try to prevent that when you're watching TV.
Well, we talked about normalization and stuff like that. We can talk about that next time. Yeah, there's and you see it like even you were talking about different medias coming to you, or different creator. I don't even know what to call it. Different producers, different. You're getting the media from all these different people,
Correct.
and all of it comes together and it gets put on the web it gets put on the TV station, and it is vastly different.
Yes.
We experience this in radio all the time. We experience it in TV, and we experience it. We experience it in stuff like that all the time, where the levels are just different, and there are like there's. In order to not send audio through another processor, most of the time that's why this is happening, is that because they're not then sending what's being sent to them through anything that is then regulating that up and down of it. But we didn't even talk about like inside of a movie. If you've ever been watching a movie and you're like, I can't hear what they're saying. And then all of a sudden there's an explosion. You're like, I don't have ears anymore because I was so loud. That range that the movie production is giving you is greater than the range of your speakers.
I would call that the tenet
And
effect.
so you wanted, the tenet effect. You
Yes.
wanted more compression.
Yes.
What the theater wanted was higher fidelity.
Yes.
They wanted it to be more like you are in the room with what is happening than your speakers can even handle. It was made for a big system.
Yep.
And your little, tiny sub 1 inch speakers on your TV aren't doing that.
Yep.
So, it's just another reason to go buy more speakers.
Yes.
Better
All right, John,
speakers.
let's get you out of here, get you home to your family. It's getting late. I appreciate it, man. I love hearing you talk about this stuff. I hope everybody out there is going to enjoy this as well. And we'll see if we
It's fun. Hey, if I made a mistake, why don't you tell us?
Yeah. Hey, Jason, if
Send
you're
us a
listening.
Boostagram.
So, all right, man. I
There you
appreciate
go.
it, John.
Oh man, I don't want Jason critiquing my work. That dude is way smarter than I am.
All right, man.
All right.
I'll see you next time.
Sounds good.